Hey, I'm Jay, and you're listening to the More Than podcast. I'm a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, confidence coach, and red carpet host. Don't let those titles fool you, though. I'm a 30-year-old, overly curious woman who loves to connect with others over the good, the bad, and the hilarious parts of our stories. From the outside looking in, my 20s looked really glamorous, but in reality, I struggled deeply with my confidence, self-worth, and mental health. I went on a deep healing journey to figure out how to live a life that felt as fulfilling as it looked, and now I help you do that too. I'm not afraid to go deep, and our guests aren't either. We talk all about mindset, mental health, confidence, relationships, beauty, boundaries, business, fashion, while giving you tangible tools for your own growth. This is one of those girl chats that leave you feeling inspired and empower you to stop settling and create a life you love. You're so much more than whatever's holding you back, and I'm so glad you're here. Today's episode is going to be a fun one because we're going to share an experience that we both had from two very different perspectives. We were talking the other day off air about entering our uncomfy girl era and getting more comfortable being uncomfortable. And I feel like I am more comfortable being outside of my comfort zone now as a 30-year-old than I ever was in my 20s. So I could relate to the sentiment when you were like, yeah, no, that's very foreign. I don't want to be uncomfy.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And I remember where I was at when I was in my early 20s and how much that would have terrified me. But I feel like since we've been working together, I've learned so much from you. You've pushed me so far outside of my comfort zone. And I know I've done the same thing for you. And so I feel like today it would be very value packed for our audience to talk about when we first met each other and how the evolution of us working together has come to be. Because for our listeners that are in the stage of life similar to me, that maybe you're a business owner, or maybe you're just a little bit older and have a side hustle, or are trying to become a leader for the first time, or if you're in Priscilla's stage of life and trying to figure out who you are and figuring out your career, I think it's going to add a lot of value to a diverse audience.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be value packed. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
For those of you who don't know who I'm talking to right now, if you're not watching, this is Priscilla.
Hi.
My lovely assistant. You met her a couple episodes ago, and you're going to get to know her a whole lot better because she is a bold, brilliant, badass woman that I am obsessed with, and you guys are going to be obsessed with too. So let's set the scene and go back to the very first night we met.
Yeah.
It sounds like a romance.
It does sound like a romance. I was going to say we should write a book.
We should write a book. It's now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, it was so kismet and meant to be.
It was so such a serendipitous evening. It was
really was.
Really crazy.
Well, both of us went into the evening with no expectations, no intentions.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for anybody to join my team. I don't think you were looking for a new job.
I wasn't actively looking. I think at that point I had kind of made a mental decision of I'm going to be open, and I knew that I wanted something different, but I also hadn't made the first step until I met you to actually seek a job outside of what I was currently doing. But Allie, our mutual friend who actually owns this podcast studio, she had this amazing event.
Yeah, it was like a kickoff party to South by Southwest.
Yes. Okay, cool. That was really fun and really smart on her.
So smart. I feel like everyone that I met and every friend that I have is from that event.
Yeah.
Literally everyone was there.
Every event after that, it was
you see the same people over and over again. It was awesome. So Allie, good for you on that.
Yeah, and I remember I showed up to the event so late because I had gotten off of work because my last job worked later hours, and went upstairs, and it was super nerve-wracking because then I walked upstairs and everyone was famous in some sort of capacity, not crazy, but I was oh, I know everyone here and they have no idea who I am, sort of a thing. And that's just the internet for you. And I just started talking around and mingling and whatnot. And then I found Allie, but she was talking to some other people, and I eventually went up and said hi to her, and she was like, oh my gosh, there's someone here that you have to meet. And I was like, okay, who is it? And Jordan was right across the way, and you were with your hubby.
Yeah.
And Allie was like, I think you either came over or Allie walked us over to you guys, and she introduced us. And I remember I looked at you and I was like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. I was like, I want to be her when I grow up.
You're the sweetest thing ever. Well, Allie knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
Some divine way, because I remember her bringing you up and we were meeting so many new people.
So many.
And every conversation was so different because everybody is so different, but it was all in like the creative field.
Yeah.
So I just assumed everybody that I was meeting was a creative. And I was so impressed by you right off the bat, because you carried yourself with this level of confidence and assurance in who you were. And now I know you on a much deeper level, but you made eye contact with me the entire time. You asked very targeted questions that I'm like, I feel like I'm on an interview. Like, this chick is here to find some things out. And then halfway through our conversation, you were like, are you hiring?
I did. I blurted it out.
Just blurted it out. And I'm like, oh, ha ha ha. You're like, no, I'm dead serious.
No.
Are you hiring? And I was like, I need an intern. Like, I need help, but I don't know what I need help with. And I'm not in a position right now that I want to make that investment in my business. And we kept talking a little bit more. I think I started mingling with some other people too. And you came back up to me and said, I will work for you for free.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can provide so much value.
Yeah.
And I remember being caught off guard, 1. 2, being like, damn, bold.
Yeah.
I like it. And then 3rd was like, she's not serious. Like, I'm not going to hear from her after this. But we got in the car, Brendan and I, as we're driving home. And I'm like, I see so much of myself in Priscilla. Something about her. Like, I really want to see what she does next. The ball's in her court. We'll see if she follows up. I think I gave you my number.
Yeah, we exchanged numbers.
And it was like the next day you were like, hi, when can we meet up to talk about
like, let's go get coffee.
So quick. And then I remember like giving you my schedule and being like, okay, maybe this will work out. And you were like, no, this date, this time, this is where I'm going to see you. And I'm like, she's organized. I need that in my life really, really badly.
I just really wanted it. I don't know.
I was so impressed, but I'm like, there's no way this girl is going to work for free. She already has a full-time job. There's no way. And we met up to go to an event together. And I remember you saying that you had done a whole social media audit of the podcast page, of my personal page. You came with all these ideas of things that you would be doing, and again offered, if you just give me a chance to prove my value, I promise you won't regret it. And I remember sitting there wondering, like, why wouldn't I? 1, this is a once in a million opportunity, but why does she want this? And do I need it or do I not? And now I know that it was myself holding myself back. I was scared. I was a control freak. I am a control freak.
Yeah.
And I had my hands in everything and didn't know how to release it, and didn't think somebody else would align with my mission and with my passion in the same way that I could. And you did instantly. It was amazing.
Yeah.
To watch. And ever since I said yes, I remember calling you and being like, okay, yes, let's dive in. You would have thought I just like gave you a 7-figure job. Like, you were so hyped.
Over the moon. Because I also was like, I think I had put myself in this box of like kind of a one-trick pony in a way. I love my bosses. They were great, and I have a really good relationship with them now. But I think I had worked with them for 2 years, and they had seen what I did, and they knew my strengths and they knew my weaknesses, and they only wanted me to do my strengths. They only wanted me to focus on my strengths. And that's really great, but at the same time I wasn't growing. And I think I had mentally put this limiting belief on myself of like, no one else will see me for the value that I think I can bring, if that makes sense. Like I was like, that's why I kept reiterating, like, just give me a chance and I'll show you, because I was like, I knew I could do it, but I felt like other people didn't know that I could do it, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. To have the self-confidence or the self-awareness more than anything, to know that you had so much more in you than what you were being given, and acting on it. I think that's the most impressive part, is that you acted on it and you believed in yourself enough to fight for yourself, to somebody that I didn't deserve for you to fight for yourself. Like, I was in no position to tell you whether or not you could or could not do something, but you believed in yourself so much that I couldn't help but believe in you too. And I thought that was really unique and powerful, especially coming from somebody who just kind of recently entered the workforce in the last couple years. And I think I see so many people in their early 20s, especially if you chose to do the college route, which you did, that settle early out of college for a job that they think pays decent so that it can afford being on your own for the first time and having some flashy things and being able to go out and provide a fun, quote unquote, lifestyle in your early 20s, and then really regret that when you get to be my age because you feel stuck. But you flipped that. You did it opposite. Where does that come from?
I heard this quote when I was younger, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but someone said you're either running from something or you're running to something. And I think that kind of shifted my perspective on like where my motivation came from. And I do think that you go through different seasons of your life and you go through different moments where you're running from something or you're running to something. And I think I very much used to base every decision I made off of, well, I don't want that to be me, or I don't want that to happen to me. And that it was like everything was fear-based. Every question or every decision that I made was made from a place of fear. And as soon as I shifted my perspective of, no, this is actually what I want my life to look like, and putting that goal of like, I want to run to this versus I want to run away from this, I think that changed my life in a way. Because then my actions were different. Like it did a complete 180 of like every decision I made was made much more intentionally.
It reminds me of that episode that we did of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways. Mm-hmm. Like you're an epitome of that. And it's interesting that you did feel that fear and still continued moving forward, because from my vantage point, you came across as somebody that had no fear. That you
really
knew you were capable of doing so many different things, and you knew your skill set and you knew your value. And I think that's another thing that people get confused about, because if you know your value, why would you offer to work for somebody for free?
Yeah. And I would love to touch on that, because this is actually a hot topic that I haven't really spoken about, but I need to, because I think that it is such a different mindset than what at least my generation has these days.
Well, I can even take that from you, because my whole company is built on self-worth.
Yeah.
And instilling you should know your worth, you should know your value. But what I've learned and seen you play out that I really admire is that you know your worth and you know your value, but you're not entitled. And I think there's a difference, especially when it comes to your generation, bits and pieces of my generation too, which is even a weird thing to say. I feel so old saying that. But there's a level of entitlement there, because we've been able to see people have success so quickly. And I think that's just the advancement of where our world is at, right? You can see that if you post a video, it goes viral, you can create an entire career. That you guys have grown up seeing that. Whereas the way that it has always worked is you put in your time and you build up value in the workforce. You build up your worth in the workforce. You don't come in there with that.
Yep.
And you have known that from the beginning, that it's not that you as a person is not worthy and valuable. It's that in the workforce setting, you got to build up your credibility in order to be compensated in a way that reflects your value and your worth.
Totally.
But you start doing that early in your career. It would be different if you were 45 years old going into a corporate career, that you have all this experience, but you're new into the career force.
Yeah. How do you expect someone to, like, especially you didn't know me. My social media was not anything about what I was doing. Like even my LinkedIn, like there was no proof of concept in a way of like what I was trying to offer you and show you. And so I knew the only way that you would actually like see it is if you actually saw it firsthand, like what I wanted to do for you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can provide value to her and I want to provide value for her. And there's so many other ways to be compensated besides monetary value. Like the support that you showed me and the confidence that you instilled in me. I know you say that I came across like I had no fears. I was shaking in my boots. I was so scared. I had never pitched myself to anyone before, and I was terrified. And I remember like literally just thinking in my head, like actively while we were having a conversation of just fake it till you make it, fake it till you make it. Like just put on a smile. Like I couldn't tell if you like knew how scared I was. And I was like, just holding on to like, you got this, like fake it till you make it. Like the worst thing that she could do is say no. But there's so much other value that you provided in return to me besides just like monetary value, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
And I think that it's twofold, my response to what you just said, because knowing that you did feel that fearful and you were faking it till you make it shows firsthand that it works.
Totally
Because
works.
I didn't see that you were faking it till you make it. I saw somebody that's extremely confident. And I liked it. I'm like, okay, I like you a lot, especially knowing that's part of the business too. I'm like, I need this girl on my side real quick. But the other part of it is I really admired the fact that you were willing to hustle to get things done. I think that spoke even more to me than how talented you are, because let's face it, you are extremely talented and you have a very different and unique skill set compared to mine. We are yin and yang when it comes to that.
But we mesh so well.
We mesh perfectly, thank God. But you were willing to hustle to figure things out. And I think there is a mindset that a lot of people have when they go into anything new, but especially we'll keep it in the business element, that if you don't know how to do something, it's so overwhelming instead of just saying, I can figure it out. There hasn't been a time that I've asked you to do something where you've told me, I don't know how to do that. It's been like, yeah, I can figure that out. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I can figure that out. And when you combine that mentality with a hustle mentality, I think there's a time and place for balance, especially a work-life balance. I don't believe the time and place for that is in your early 20s.
It's not. Absolutely not. Why would you want to have, like, if you have so much free time on your hands in your 20s and you're making no money, that doesn't make sense to me.
And that's on you.
That's on you. And then you get to your 30s and your 40s and you still have no money because it's so much harder at that point because you wasted 10 years of your life going out, partying, drinking, spending all your savings, going on crazy trips. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Why not set yourself up for a brighter future? Why not put in the years and put in the work to where you can go on those trips and vacations when you're in your 30s and 40s, and guess what? They're going to be a lot better because you're going to have a lot more money that you can spend. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to me. And I feel like, especially now, everyone is preaching on social media of like, you know, you only live once, like your 20s are the best time to like go out and travel. And sure, again, I'm not discrediting any of that. I mean, we all take like whatever, but at the same time, like, if you're not busting your ass to make a brighter future for yourself, what are you doing? Like, this is not the time. The economy is bad. Like, this is not the time or the place to fool around. And that's what I feel like a lot of people are doing, is they're just making excuses for themselves, and you know, they're just fooling around and they're not taking it seriously when there's so much opportunity if you just decide to do it. 99% of people don't do it. They don't take action.
And then they wonder why they don't have the same opportunities that somebody else has.
Exactly.
And there's room for every single person to be successful. And that's what you and your generation has proven, that if you're willing to be strategic and work really, really hard, you can build up a foundation for an incredible life with opportunities that we never used to be exposed to.
Yeah.
But if you're spending your 20s hyper-focused on making money, and like you said, the only benefit to working isn't just monetary value. Mm-mm. It's getting experience. It's meeting people. It's networking.
It's building confidence. How do you think that you're going to build confidence if you're sitting around on your phone all day? That's not actions that build confidence.
No.
Getting things done, keeping the promises that you make to yourself, taking action. I feel way more confident in myself when I've had a crazy busy day that has worn me out to my bones, where I've gotten everything off my to-do list done. That's when I feel the most confident.
Do you feel like you stick out a lot to your peers?
Yes. And I don't mean this from like an ego standpoint of like, it's a blessing and a curse, because like on the flip side, I've never felt like I've really fit in. But at the same time, I have to remind myself of life is not made for you to fit in. And I was not made to fit in. And that's a good thing. And I think reminding myself of that and like giving myself that as an affirmation of like what I repeat to myself, like in my journal and in my mirror, and, you know, like I was not born to fit in, and that's a good thing. That's not something that was meant for me. And if anything, use that to your advantage. Like,
absolutely.
Why would you want to fit in? Like, we weren't made for that.
Nope. And anytime you try and fit into some box that you were never meant to fit in the first place, you're making yourself smaller to make other people more comfortable.
Totally.
And ultimately, it just ends up making you unhappy.
Absolutely.
And you learning that so young is something that I really, really admire, because I do think that I bent and manipulated myself so much to try and fit into this figurative box throughout my 20s and try to fit in, quote unquote, whatever that means. And I think that's why people enjoy their 30s so much and say that they gain so much confidence and all of that later in life. It's because you finally learn that lesson, that who were you trying to fit in with?
Who are you trying to impress?
Exactly. Who are you trying to impress? If it's at the expense of hurting yourself.
Right. If you're not impressed with yourself, that's the only person that matters. You have to live with you. You have to go to bed with yourself at night. Mm-hmm. If you're not impressed with yourself, if you're not actively going after those crazy dreams of yours that you have, change.
What's it for? Exactly. Change.
Yeah.
And that's the other part. I remember asking you too, when you were still doing free work for me, I'm like, why are you doing this? What do you want out of this? And you had kept saying that you really just wanted the experience. You wanted to keep providing value, and you knew that you could do more. And the fact that you were willing to hustle outside of work hours, when we first started working together, it was like 7 p.m. till like 1 a.m. And then I finally had to be like, Priscilla, I'm going to bed. Like, I can no longer do this. And I'd wake up to 4 text messages of reels that you're editing and stuff that you're doing until all hours of the day. And then wouldn't hear from you while you're doing your actual job. And then you kick it into overdrive again at night. Like, you were working like crazy.
Yeah.
And like we said a couple minutes ago, if you had a family and if you were in a different stage of life doing that, I'd be like, you're going to burn out. Careful.
Yeah.
As someone in their early 20s that understands that you got to hustle and you got to work for things if you really want them. But something that amazed me even more about you, we'll fast forward. This was only like 3 weeks that we worked together. You called me and you were like, I'm ready for more. I need more. I'm in a place right now that changes need to start happening. And I am looking for full-time work, and I'd like for it to be with you if there's an opportunity there. If not, I need to look elsewhere. And again, I was like, damn, this girl, like, so bold. You've already shown me how much value you can not only bring into my business, but the way that you've been able to alleviate so much from my plate so that I can be a lighter, happier, healthier human in the other areas of my life was so invaluable that it was like, I will figure out whatever I can do to make it work. I have to have you. And it's only been weeks now. Yeah. And we've been able to do so much because of that. But I think you knowing yourself enough to be like, hey, I would love to continue doing this. I can't continue doing this forever. But if you're in a position that you want to push yourself, get outside of your comfort zone a little bit, I'm willing to take the dive if you're willing to take the dive. Yeah. And you gave me that little love tap that I needed and pushed me outside of my comfort zone. It's been the best thing ever. So walk me through like building up the courage to do that too, because if there's people that are listening right now that feel like they're ready to step into something new, they feel like they've laid that framework and want to ask for more, how do you build up the courage to actually do it?
I think it just goes back to feel the fear and do it anyway. I remember I was so scared. I was shaking when I called you. It was like a Sunday night at like, I think it was like 9 p.m. It was so late. Like I had spent the day brainstorming ideas and I was like looking at jobs on LinkedIn, and I had just decided that day, I was like, I need to find my next action step because I'm not happy where I'm at. And my mental health was not where it needed to be. And the the most joyous part of my day was when I worked with you. And I just was like, if there is any opportunity, if there is any percent that she would say yes, I have to try. Because I was fully expecting you to shoot me down and say, you know, I can hire you on part-time. Like, you know, I can have you come on for a couple hours a week and like we can figure something out that way. And so I was trying to figure out ways that I could offset that and offset the cost of like, okay, if she hires me on part-time, maybe I can get a job here. Maybe I can figure, you know, I was like doing all the puzzle pieces in my head. And I remember we had like an hour-long conversation and like talked a lot of things through. And then you're like, all right, I'll give you an answer by the end of the week. And then 20 minutes later, you called me back. I remember seeing your name pop up on the phone and I was like, this is either really good news or really bad news. It's real one or the other. Yeah, and then you were like, all right, let's do it.
Let's do it. And it's funny because right when this conversation happened, we had just released, or I think the next day we were releasing Feel the Fear and Do It Anyways.
We were.
The timing was wild. And right after we'd had our conversation, I was like, let me go talk to Brendan and just figure out where I'm at as a business, if it makes sense. And you had sent me the teaser reel for the next day.
Yeah.
And something about seeing myself.
That was so not strategic, by the way.
If it was.
I'm just realizing that was so not strategic.
I never even thought at the time maybe it would be.
It was not.
If it was, master.
I'm a mastermind.
Mastermind. Literally. Now Taylor Swift's Mastermind is like playing through my head. But it was the most like moving thing I could have seen in that moment. Because I'm like, I'm literally talking to myself about the situation right now. And I didn't even connect the dots. I heard this and I'm like, oh, that's a really good reel for tomorrow. And Brendan goes, are you going to practice what you preach or are you not? Like, it's black or white in this situation. Either you're going to jump in and you're going to try something new because you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results, or you're going to hold yourself back. Which is it? And I was like, I have to step into something new. And he goes, and what are you waiting for? I'm like, well, I told her I'd tell her by the end of the week. Maybe I should sleep on it and like figure out what I want. He's like, why? You have a decision. Go tell her. And it was like such a quick turnaround time. And I think both you and I were like, what are we doing? This is really fun. This is terrifying. Like, it was just a wild moment that obviously has led to so many amazing moments since then. But knowing that from the very beginning, seeing so much of myself in you, but like a way better, more mature, more confident and self-aware version. That it's really beautiful to see you be a part of what we're building here because you are practicing it in such a different phase of life than I'm in right now. And I think that's so beautiful. We were working on part of the confidence course and talking about the morning routine and working through stuff. And I'll never forget you saying like, I aspire to have a morning routine like that someday. That's just not the stage of life I'm in.
Yeah. And accepting that.
And being okay with that.
Yeah.
And being like, you're right. I wouldn't have been doing that in my early 20s.
Right.
Like I'm in a totally different place now. And also, how do you now implement the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, stuff in the court, in the confidence course? How do you implement that into your own life?
Right.
And watch it play out in your 20s. And you've been such a good guinea pig.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I do hear a lot of people, you know, not necessarily preaching, but talking a lot about on social media and on podcasts and whatnot that, you know, this is the morning routine you have to be productive. And this is the morning routine you have to build success. And I do think that there are strategic ways to have a morning routine. And I do think that there are certain things that you do need in your morning routine and in your night routine and overall throughout your day. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, again, devil's advocate, I think that your early 20s specifically, and maybe there are other seasons of life as well, where it's just not realistic for you to have 4 hours dedicated to have a morning routine or to, you know, go through all your things that you need to do. Again, there are things that, you know, you should do when you wake up and that will make you more productive. But I look back at, you know, these people that are like ultra super wealthy mega billionaires, and I think back at when they were in their 20s. Do you think that they had a 4-hour morning routine? No, they didn't. And that's okay And now they have that because they're, you know, at a season of life where that's really valuable to them. And that does help them be the most productive and superhuman that they can be. But I do think that, you know, the saying, like, the truth will always prevail.
Yeah.
I want to twist that and say hard work will always prevail. And I think that if that's like the one thing I could tell people, and I do tell people, is if you keep your head down and you work and you just give your 110% best into everything that you're working for, it will prevail. Something will work out, whether it's the opportunity you're working on right then and there or another one that pops up. I just am a full believer that hard work will prevail.
It always does.
Always.
It's just not instant.
Right.
And I think that's where we get lost.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of doing it too. Patience is such a virtue, but patience when it comes to hard work and the success that inevitably follows, but success comes in a lot of different forms, that I think people see the ultra wealthy and they assume that, like, that is what success is. And that's what I'm working towards. And for a lot of people, that could very well be what you are working towards. If you are a entrepreneur that wants to discover the next Amazon, like, good for you. I hope that in 20 years you are a billionaire. You probably will be.
Yeah.
Like, there's special people for that. But the majority of us are just working towards trying to have a life and live a life that is fulfilling. And I think that's where people get confused too, because if success and money are interchangeable in your mind, you miss out on all the other forms of success that come from laying the foundation of hard work early on.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. Yeah, and I think we've been saying money a lot, but I think value is the best word. Because again, it's there is not one way to get something out of, like, there's more than one way to be compensated for something. And patience is so important. And, like, we very much are living in a society where that instant gratification is a virus and very much, you know, instilled in all of us with the way that, you know, our phones operate even. It's that addicting dopamine hit. And I think that, like you said, patience is everything, but it's, you know, we're at a point in our society where we have to make some sort of mental shifts in order to actually get the success and the fulfillment that you're looking for. And money is not the only way to do that. It helps for sure.
Absolutely.
It makes everything easier, but at the same time, like, again, I go back to the value that I got out of you. I mean, there's like more than 10, like, I couldn't even name it all on my hands. You know, I have grown. It's only been 3 months since I worked with you. I feel like a completely different person. I act as if I'm a completely different person. And even, like, my boyfriend, he's like, you're so different from the Priscilla that you were 3 months ago. Like, I know you said that I was, like, fearless and, like, but I was so scared. And I felt like I was, in that moment, I saw who I could be, and I chose to act like her versus acting like the person that I was 3 months ago, who was so scared, riddled with anxiety. Every second of the day, felt like I was nauseous because of how anxious I was. And I remember I, like, saw the version of myself that, like, could potentially be, and I was like, I want to act as how she would act. And that was just such a mindset shift for me as well.
And you did it, and look at how your entire life changed.
Totally.
By one brave moment.
Yeah.
It's wild to see how much your life can change if you are brave, if you are bold. And I really resonate with what you just said, because I think we've all seen the Pinterest quote of, like, visualize your highest self and start showing up as her. Actually executing that and doing that takes a lot of work, and you have to consistently do it time and time and time again before you even start feeling like that version. And there's things that you can be doing every single day to help almost behind the scenes before you're in that moment to start building up that confidence and helping you grow so much as a woman. And I feel like I've seen those changes in you even over the last couple months. And I know that the way that you take care of yourself and the way you take care of your mental health and the way that you are affirming yourself to become more confident is something you've put an emphasis on. So I'd love to hear about like specific things that you're doing every day to help yourself step into this new version of you.
Yeah. I think the first is having a mindset of you're always a student. Like, even though I'm building confidence, entitlement is nowhere. Like, I will never be entitled to anything. I will never be entitled to someone's time, to someone's money, to someone's AirPods. I don't know. Like, I will never be entitled to anything. And I think taking that out of the picture of that is like not something that is even in my vocabulary, and instead putting myself in the mindset of I'm a student, I'm learning, I'm a student of life. I will always be growing. I will always be learning. It almost takes the pressure off, because then it's like you can mess up, you can make mistakes, and it doesn't deter from like the skill that you have or lack of. Like, it doesn't matter because you're always a student, and it's easier to give yourself more grace when you do make mistakes because you're growing, and growing isn't linear.
And you're supposed to be making mistakes.
You're supposed to be making mistakes.
This is especially the decade of your life that you should probably make the most mistakes.
Totally. That's how you learn. Absolutely. Another one that I do is just daily affirmations. You talk a lot about this, and this is something that I actually did learn from you, was daily affirmations, and like to a point where it's annoying. Like my roommate and my boyfriend, they actually both kind of say the same thing of like, because I'll like talk to myself like, you know, like you got this, and you know, tell myself out loud how, you know, I got this and I'm strong and I'm smart, and they always kind of giggle at me, but now they do it too.
Because it works.
It works. And it's genuinely like, if I'm having an anxious moment where I'm like, okay, this is kind of scary, like feeling a little bit of fear here, tell yourself like, I'm strong. I'm scared, but I'm strong. And it doesn't matter how scared I am, I will always be strong. And I can always feel the fear and do it anyway. So that's another like tangible thing that if you could just be annoying about it.
Literally be annoying about it.
Yeah.
But the more annoying you are about it in the beginning, it almost feels forced in the beginning, like you're having to remind yourself of it time and time again. But then you get to a place where it's such a mental shift that you're so comfortable making that it comes naturally.
Yeah.
You don't go down the rabbit hole of that anxiety and of beating yourself up over something. You instantly go to like, okay, how do I flip this? How am I learning from this? How can I boost up my own self-esteem so that I can put one foot in front of the other?
Yeah.
Instead of being so debilitated by it.
And if you turn your instinct into telling yourself you're strong, like how amazing is that? That
That's
your
a superpower.
instinct when you're in a tough situation or when you're not feeling your greatest, if you muscle memory turn your instinct into telling yourself that you're strong and you got this and you can do this, you're unstoppable. You are unstoppable.
Talk about building resilience.
Yeah.
And your daily little battles. Like, we face daily battles every single day. If you are constantly building up that resilience muscle, think about how you're going to face any type of actual issues, actual battles in your life. Like, you've already prepped for it by the little mini battles that you have every single day.
Oh, totally. Another one that I just recently started putting more mindfulness into is decision fatigue. And this I've noticed an difference in my confidence because of it. And just hear me out. Like, we make so many decisions every day. I don't know the exact number. There's a scientific number where we make so many decisions every single day.
Oh, it's like thousands of decisions.
And so I think it's someone, I forget who. It might have been Alex Hormozy. I'm not sure. But someone was talking. I love Alex Hormozy. He's a great one. Someone was talking on a podcast about streamlining your life to where the decisions that you are consciously making are the important ones. So, you know, when it comes to your business, when it comes to your job, when it comes to action steps that you want to take for like to improve your life, make those the decisions that you make throughout the day versus like, what am I going to wear today? Like make the non-important decisions, either do them at night, the night before, make it streamlined to where your life is so much easier and you can make less decisions so that the decisions that you do make are
impactful.
The meat. They're like the meat of your life and impactful and intentional, and you'll make better decisions because of it. And I think that intentionality and that brain bandwidth has built my confidence in a way to where it's like, I'm focused, like it gives a focus on what your life and what your day should look like versus all this other non-important stuff that doesn't matter. And then I notice I'm less problematic in my relationship because I'm not overthinking all of the silly things that really don't matter 20, minutes from now. And I'm also less in my head about things because I'm not toying with, all the 8 million scenarios of how something that is so thoughtless could be. So that's an interesting one.
Do you find that it's easier for you to do that if you place boundaries around your phone?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I do notice the days. I did this last weekend. I wasn't feeling well. I was in bed. Instead of doing my morning routine, I'm a psycho about my morning routine. Instead of doing that, I'm like, oh, it's a weekend. I just opened up TikTok and started scrolling. An hour and a half later, and all of a sudden I'm like, not only am I extremely anxious, I feel like there's so much that I should have been doing. It changed my whole state of being.
Absolutely.
And I feel like the entire day after that, like I was agitated. I was just not me. And I wanted to chalk it up to like, oh, I'm just having a bad day. Like I'm just in a bad mood. And then I was like, no, I'm not. I made a decision first thing in the morning, and it threw off the rest of my day.
And all those micro decisions when you're scrolling.
All of them.
And think about how many decisions you're making as you're scrolling. Yeah.
And then I started thinking, people do this every day. This is how they wake up. I would be an anxious, pissed off, raging, what, if that's how I started my day.
Yeah.
You're in control and your attention is given to everybody but yourself. Mm-hmm. How can you possibly make any internal decisions that are actually going to benefit you in your life if you're so preoccupied by everybody else and everything else?
Totally.
Like it sticks with you. Like you think about those TikToks, you think about those things that you saw all throughout the day.
Yep.
It dictates your happiness.
Here's a life hack. If you want to be in the top 1% of people, stop scrolling and start doing. Nobody does actions. Like nobody takes actions. If you want to be in the 1% of people that actually take action, stop scrolling, start doing.
Shit. But you're right. You're right.
And it's so simple and we overcomplicate it so much. If you were to, instead of that hour and a half that you spent scrolling, and we all do it, but if you were to make even a slightly different decision of, I'm going to read a book that's going to teach me some knowledge. Here's another hack, education hour. Give yourself 1 hour every single day where you're educating yourself.
Love that.
It could be any skill. It could be crocheting. I don't care. But literally take 1 hour, call it your education hour, set a time in your calendar. It could be the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning. You put on a podcast, you put on an audiobook, you put on a YouTube video while you're in the shower. Give yourself 1 hour of education a day. You will cry at how drastic the changes are, even in 2 weeks from the moment you start doing that, of how much you've learned. There's so much out there to learn. And the education is free online.
Yeah.
We're in a society where like YouTube University is better than most colleges. Like you learn more. And the fact that 99, probably 0.9% of people don't take advantage of that, you could literally talk about confidence. You could be in the 1% of people that take action and that start doing and that start educating themselves by such simple decisions.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I have never agreed with anything more. And I think placing really strict boundaries around yourself in the beginning as almost like a safeguard to allow yourself to get to a place where that comes naturally. Yeah. Because I think for most people, it's just a habit. No one even really knows why they have to grab their phone constantly. I think there's a new update on the iPhone that you can go in and you can see the time that you spend on each app, everything. It also tells you how many times you picked up your phone.
Wow.
Throughout the day.
Oh, I need to go
the
look
other
at
day,
that.
I picked up my phone 92 times. And I'm like, okay. One, I think it's hard when you work on your phone and you work so much in social media, but that's also such a convenient excuse that it's like, okay, so when I'm actually creating content, I should be on there promoting that content. Outside of that, there's zero reason for me to be scrolling on there. There's zero reason for me to just be mindlessly navigating, seeing what Susie from high school is doing. It doesn't make sense. It's having those safeguards around that. It's like, okay, I'm going to time block that I have 20 minutes. I'm going to post this. I'm going to engage with our community. I'm going to see what else is going on. Have 5 minutes of a little bit of fun. I'm out.
Yep.
You have to. And I think bringing, again, that awareness where most people are just like, oh, they pick it up when they go to the bathroom. They pick it up while they're cooking. They pick it up when they're doing something that should be bringing them joy in a different area of their life. But you're distracted from even being present because you're living your life online.
Yep.
And I think switching and living offline is, talk about success coming in many different forms. Some of the happiest people I know are off social media. There's something to that.
It's addicting and it's toxic. It can be toxic. It can
Absolutely.
be great.
Can be amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's our main source of income.
Yeah.
Like, amazing. But it's also,
Setting boundaries.
you can control what you consume.
Yes.
And so many people want to talk all day about how toxic it is and how addicting it is and all this. Okay, you know what else is addicting? Smoking cigarettes. If you want to stop, get a nicotine patch and stop smoking. Like, take action. If you're an alcoholic, you go to AA. If you have these addictions where you know it's really impacting your life, you're taking action to break that addiction. We all know that most of us are addicted to our phones, but nobody's doing anything about it. And at the end of the day, it's a personal decision. And you're the one that has to take ownership over your own life instead of continuously playing into the victim mentality of like, well, that's just what everybody does. And it's just a time suck. And that's just life. Doesn't have to be.
I'm
Like
going to
you
call
said,
some
top
people
1%.
out right now.
Do it.
Of if you're someone that, like, if you're someone that literally is just waiting for time to pass and you're just waiting to either get to the weekend or you're waiting for, you know, the next thing. If you're spending all of your time waiting, that's not life. You're not living. You're existing. And I think it's so important for you to have a moment of self-reflection and bring some self-awareness and just ask yourself, is this your dream life? Because that's the boat I was in 3 months ago, just waiting for the next exciting moment. And then I would get there and it wouldn't even be that exciting because I wasn't fulfilled as a human. I was waiting for these external things to fuel me. And that's not life. You're not living. I want so badly for others to experience what it feels like to actually be fulfilled and to actually be excited to wake up in the morning. It's so important. And you don't think it's important until you have it. And then you hold on to it because you just can't imagine life without that feeling. And I think scrolling is such a way to kind of pacify yourself and to pass the time while you're waiting for whatever that next big external thing is. And it can be dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous.
And the only way to combat that, take action.
Yep.
Make a decision.
In COVID, my husband and I, we moved back with my mom and my sister, which what we thought would be 2 weeks. And we ended up being there for like a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
And you don't have things to look forward to constantly, right? Like, we were all kind of stuck in the exact same mundane, you're working from home, you're not doing anything. Whereas we started making a decision that we were going to celebrate every small thing. So if a deal came through for Bren, everybody stopped what we were doing, and whether we cheersed and had a glass of wine, or whether we called off the day and we're like, we're going to go play some cards in the backyard. We're going to go on a walk. We're going to go do something. Celebrating every single teeny tiny thing was a way that we could look forward to every day. And then I started implementing that, not to that insane level, but implementing that into every day. That I get all the time, people will question, like, you're always doing something, or you guys are always celebrating something, or we're always going to do something. That's because if you're waiting for if you're waiting for an anniversary, you're waiting for a promotion, you're waiting for the day you get married, like the day you have a kid, if you're just waiting for these big moments, when you arrive to those big moments, they feel really empty because you never enjoyed the process. That the process of building something, the process of building this business is celebrating every little milestone and taking that for what it is and knowing that there's a joy-filled timeline leading up to the big moment. If you stop and if you actually reflect and you enjoy life and romanticize your life to a degree, life is fun again. Life feels like you're actually living it again. That's how you don't get to a place next year and you regret the whole way that you handled this year. Or you look back on things and feel like I should have capitalized on that or I should have enjoyed that more. And most people wait for a crisis to happen or a health diagnosis to actually start living your life. What if you made that mental switch now? What if you started celebrating things right now? And also started celebrating other people too. Like get outside of ourselves a little bit more. Like if you're feeling internally conflicted that you're not where you want to be, but you see somebody else that is taking action to create a life that they really love and they're celebrating, join in on that celebration. Get a taste of it because maybe it'll inspire you to do something in your own life.
Totally.
If you take the alternate and you decide to feel all sad and insecure because somebody else is doing something that you wish you were doing, take that for what it is and know that you're throwing yourself a pity party and you're going to be in the exact same place a year from now if you don't make a change.
You're choosing to be miserable.
It's a choice.
That's a choice. That is an active choice that you're making. And why would you want to choose to be miserable?
And it's an active choice that most people are making all day, every day without realizing they're doing it.
Totally.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. My mom quotes, I think it's Albert Einstein, I don't even know, all the time, where she says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If you take that and implement that into every area of your life, and even as we're talking now, like the more value that mid-year audit comes in, if you guys haven't done it yet, like I highly recommend that you actually do it because you get to see the specific areas in your life where you're falling short.
Reflection is everything. Why do you think we have history in school? Like literally we have an entire dedicated class, K through 12, where we are learning about history and world history and US history and all that jazz. History is what we learn from so that we don't make those same mistakes again. If you're not looking at your own history and having that self-awareness and that reflection time, how do you expect to learn from your own mistakes? How do you expect to grow if you're not taking the situations that you've been put in, looking at the lessons from them, and then going, okay, this is what I'm going to implement moving forward. This is my action plan moving forward. The smartest people that I know are the most self-aware and reflective people ever because they learn from their mistakes. And so that mid-year audit is literally gold.
Gold.
Yeah.
And it's wild to me that people would actively choose to not do that.
Yeah.
But I think if you're one of those people that you find yourself just feeling really lost or conflicted or confused or overwhelmed, or even if you're in a place like both of us where you feel like you're on the right track and you feel like some things are working, taking note of what is working and what's still not working so that it can only get better and it can be enhanced. Like you don't have to be at a totally lost place to feel like you want to reinvent your life. Sometimes it's just a little bit of fine tuning here and there that take you from living a 9 life to a 10 life. And who doesn't want that?
Absolutely.
I could talk to you all day. Well, luckily I do, but I mean in front of the mic. But I feel like people are going to take so much value out of everything that you've said. You have so much wisdom that, like I said in the beginning of this episode, I learned from you every single day. I also learned what chuggy means because she said I was chuggy in one of my TikToks, and it just really helped me realize that we are in a different generation because it means something different than what I thought. So I learn from you in many ways every day, and I just adore you. And I feel like if more people took your perspective and took your grit and your hustle and your grind and your boldness, they would be in a very different place. So I hope if you are in your 20s especially, you need to re-listen to every piece of golden advice that Priscilla just gave you, because it could absolutely change the trajectory of your life.
Thank you.
You're
so sweet.
I mean it. I mean it. Well, if you guys aren't already, make sure that you are following the More Than Podcast on all major platforms. Let us know in our latest Instagram post what your favorite snippet of this episode was. And if you haven't already, rate and review the episode. It helps us grow. And we will see you on Monday for a Mindset Monday.
Woohoo!
See ya.